I imagine some goofy shit that we
Yeah.
say, and then you put that at the beginning of the video.
Yeah. The recorded
And then
thing.
it's like, hey, there it is. Like,
Right.
so it automatically breaks the ice that way.
That's true.
Which could be just what I said now. Like we're talking.
Oh,
This is some meta shit
I am
right
recording.
now.
I am recording. Hey everyone, welcome to Cabbages and Kings, where developers talk about games and things. My name is Alex Neyman. Joined with me here today is John Hodgson. The two of us, we've worked together as game designers at Blizzard and worked in the industry for a while now. We just love to talk about games, so we thought we would do some of that today. So in particular, a game that the two of us have been playing a lot of recently is a game called Hades. So John, could you tell me a little bit about what is Hades all about?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Alex. Hades is a sort of a hack and slash action adventure game from Supergiant Games, and you play as the son of Hades, the god of the underworld in Greek mythology, and you're basically being told to go to your room and think about what you've done, and you want to get out. The whole game is you trying to break out of hell.
You're just like this rebellious teenager that is.
It
with
really
dad
nails
Hades.
that. It really nails that in the coolest possible way. So you're fighting through all of these cool like monsters and environs from Greek mythology, while getting help from the gods of Olympus, like Zeus and Artemis and Ares, and then you try again and again and again and again to get to the surface.
It's like a lot of what the game is like these kind of this roguelike term of like you're trying to escape over and over, and like few games have done this. I think like the first real roguelike I really got into was a game called Rogue Legacy, which is in the name itself. But for me, what defines a roguelike, and there's a lot of like there's a spectrum I think of roguelikes, but it's really just this idea that you're constantly trying to progress as far as you can in this thing, and the expectation is you're probably not going to completely succeed. You'll have partial success or no success or whatever, but that you're kind of like always chasing that perfect run. Because of that, a lot of the roguelikes are like higher difficulty, though I guess that's not necessarily like explicitly necessary for roguelike. I don't know. What for you, John, what are like the necessary, or what are the big pieces of like what a roguelike is in your mind?
One of the core tenets of it is it assumes that you're going to fail. You're going to fail over and over and over and over again. And the construction of the game is such that failure is actually an opportunity to see more of the game, to power up, to get better, and not just knock you back down to square one. But even that is a bit unfair to the idea that you're getting knowledge of the game every time you run through these cycles. Like you're seeing the same things over and over and over again, and you're trying to navigate the game, knowing what you know about enemies, about your character's capabilities, like through weapons or power-ups or for whatever the game affords you. And every time you go through that loop, you gain a little bit more mastery, a little bit more knowledge. And that's, I think, the key for what a roguelike really is. They seem to bring the action of or the sort of getting better at the game, this idea of getting better at the game up front, and they make it mechanical. They expect you to die, so like play again, play again, play again, play again, play again, getting new and different things each time, revealing new important information each time. And that does happen with every game that you play again and again and again, right? Like StarCraft.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's failing as part of learning in all these types of games. So for
right,
sure.
but there's not really games that sort of reward you for that, right?
No, usually it's like, well, I screwed up, let me load a save, or let me like the mission over, or whatever it might be. Whereas this is not like the time I spent was wasted, right? Because that's what save games are. Is like I have to reload a save. It's like, well, let me go back to everything before in this point in time. So the last 10 minutes of my life were wasted. But roguelikes are not, like it's a part of it.
Because they give you bonuses usually, right?
Yeah, the longer you go, the better.
Right. But I think that roguelikes do, I guess what I'm saying is something a little bit more philosophical, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts about this, is that roguelikes do reveal to us that the games that we play over and over and over again, um, in all of those cases are like we are getting better every time that we
Right.
lose.
Yeah, I think
We
it's
get
just
better at StarCraft every time we lose, get better at Uno every time we lose, or chess, or poker, uh, or the game that we used to work on, Heroes of the Storm, right? Like we could, or like if you're grinding on a raid boss in World of Warcraft or some other MMO, is like you try over and over and over again. You get a little bit better each time, and that sort of mastery gains. Some people are really into making these incremental improvements to the way that they play, and roguelikes encourage that. Roguelikes
yeah,
are
like
all about that.
roguelikes just tapping into what exists because I think if you're a really mature gamer or if you're really a calm, rational person, you will lose that game in a MOBA. And you'll be like, okay, well, I learned this from this
Screw
one, I
this.
did this in this one, but like that's oftentimes I think that's if we're not as emotionally reactive to losing, sometimes we can see the benefits. But I think what a
Okay, I see what you're
roguelike
saying.
does
I see what you're saying.
is they're
Yeah.
taking what we already should be feeling or what we are feeling, but then just making it gamifying it, right? Like you just make it okay. Sure, in the back of my mind, I know that I'm getting better at killing this raid boss, but dang, it would feel a lot better if I got a piece of loot. And that's what roguelikes do. And actually, I was thinking about this as you were kind of talking of one of the benefits of roguelikes, which typically have like constant resets, like every time you die or every time you complete a run, you kind of like wipe your inventory clean. Like you keep some progression, but for the most part, you wipe your inventory clean. Is it allows them to much more aggressively provide rewards. Like every room in Hades gives you a reward, gives you a boon or money or like a shop or whatever. And like,
Hmm.
therefore it's like that constant little like, that ringing bell that makes me feel good about
Yeah,
the
yeah,
game
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time, which is
yeah.
one of the reasons why I think Hades, I played a few amount of roguelikes, but Hades does, I think, a great job right at the beginning of like you zone into the first room and it's like super easy and you just get a reward right at the beginning that gives you a boon right at the start that kind of like, okay, this is what's going to be in the run. Like in games like Slay the Spire or others, I found like the beginning is kind of slow because my deck's always the same, which is the random weapons also change that, but my deck's pretty much always the same. I guess there's like 3 or 4 different characters in Slay the Spire, but regardless, it takes a while for me to like really adjust my deck to kind of make it be a different gameplay experience. Well, right from the beginning, if I get a Poseidon buff or if I get a Dionysus buff or a Demeter buff, like all those types of things sort of tell me, okay, I'm gonna have something different occurring in this game that's really fun. And they're allowed to do
Hmm.
that because they're constantly wiping your progression or part of your progression over. Therefore, they can be much more aggressive with like if a game like Diablo was giving you this stuff all the time, well, eventually it would mean nothing because I have so many of these boons and buffs that it is irrelevant at a certain point, right? A lot of the fun for me in role playing games, whether pen and paper or computer, whatever, is like that initial concept of like, okay, what am I going to build? What's my party going to look like? Who are the characters going to be? What races are they? What classes are they? I think one of the things I love about roguelikes is they take that feeling of what is my character going to be? Who is it this time? Like, what's it going on? There's a little bit of spice of randomness in there too, but it captures that feeling of character creation. Like, basically, like I'm building a character for like 30 minutes to an hour for that's a run over and over
Yeah,
again. And then you have
yeah.
like your favorites that you get. Yeah, that joy of the beginning of a game over and over again. That's the feeling I get with Hades and with roguelikes in general that I love so
I
much.
haven't heard it explained that way, but you're exactly right. You're exactly right. You get to play the building part again
Yeah.
over and over and over again. What a glorious thing.
But it's interesting that roguelikes is really to like sum up what a roguelike is, what Hades is actually is like it's about death in a sort of morbid, weird way, but it's about making failure and death like fun, which is such a strange concept. But I think it works because it's like even when you do fail, quote unquote, like I don't know how you fail in Hades. Like how do you fail in Hades? Like you die at the beginning
It's
over and over
when
and
you
you make no
stop.
progression. I
It's
don't
the
know.
same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing that they say when you stop playing a Dark Souls game. The failure state is you stop playing.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that there is a bit of the beauty of what games actually are when they are presented in a way where the failure state comes out. The
Yeah.
purpose of these games and this might be getting a little philosophical, and Alex, do you think that as a game developer, right, it's so tempting sometimes to make changes to characters in your game or like mechanics in your game in order to iron out frustrations, iron out failures, iron out things that make people feel bad.
Smooth out the rough
And
edges. To use a term that's been
the
thrown
rough
around a few
edges,
times.
indeed,
Yeah.
that was a big term at Blizzard. It's like embrace the rough edges or iron out the rough edges, right? And I think that by its own the definition of these roguelikes of failure being a core part of the game means you cannot iron that out. The failure is here to stay. We should recognize it. We should see that in our own play and potentially our own lives, and come to terms with that and see the good in it.
Yeah, no, like games are often, especially PvP games, they're often highs and lows. And this is a much more difficult challenge, I think, of making the lows not feel so bad in a PvP game, because oftentimes one player's low is directly correlated with another player's high. That's often how it works in a PvP game. But that is a key. Like, it's funny because some of my favorite games of all time are Dark Souls games, like are Souls-like games, and those absolutely do not care about how low your lows. Like, they will brutally destroy you. But it's almost like Souls-like does it in a very different fashion of, rather than making death becomes a core part of the game, but it's mostly like you fail so much in those games, especially at the beginning, that because they're just hard, especially if you're new to the genre, that you become desensitized to it almost in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, oh, no big deal, I just died.
And I think that Hades does this too, because you basically remove the fear of failure from games. And I think that is very key.
That's a good point.
You can do that a lot of different ways. You can do it with it happens all the time. You have carried over progression. You can do like maybe when you do fail, you didn't have much investment anyway, which is like, honestly, Hades does like all those things. Roguelikes do all those things, which is why it works so well. You also need to maintain the illusion of, like, if you have in the mindset of Hades of, well, I can't fail, it still has to be like, failure exists in this game world, in this game space that I'm making, because otherwise then your successes mean nothing. Because if you have zero lows, you have zero highs. So it's one of the challenges is to maintain the illusion of a low, of an illusion of a failure that I could hit at any one point in time without it actually hurting that bad, or enabling you to quickly rebound, which is honestly, I think, probably what Souls-likes do, or excuse me, roguelikes do, is that they immediately say, here you go, here's your next game, go get it. And the fun is very front loaded right at the beginning of, go jump into the next fun. Here you go, you get a new piece of candy instead, right?
It's another opportunity.
Yeah. And it's I think that's to me the core of a good game, is when playing the game is the fun, not beating the game or winning the game is the fun. And that is a hallmark to me of, I think, a good gameplay experience, and why I think like the Souls-like games work too. We don't need to go on too much of a tangent, because I'm sure we'll talk about Souls-likes at some time, but just the experience, and I think maybe like wrap up kind of what we're talking about, like Hades in general, I think does a good job. If I were to encapsulate all in one thing, it's like it is a good experience. I mean that in all different levels, but and just in general, like the genre itself, roguelikes, I think are a very interesting genre, because we kind of have this, like, to get almost political here for a second, but not political in particular, but because we do have such like a negative, the game space in particular, the internet in particular, is such kind of like a negative, can be such a negative place at times. I think in particular games that can like leverage that concept of reducing the toxicity just in their game design itself, like rather than combat all of the symptoms, like look at the cause itself of why your game has toxic traits. And doing that, I think Souls-likes are roguelikes are so good at doing that. And I think
we
it's
will
like
get
a really
there.
I know I'm already thinking about the next episode, but I don't know. Do you have anything you wanted to add, John, about Hades or roguelikes in particular? Anything you're looking forward to, or I know you're looking forward to beating Hades.
I am looking forward to finishing the game. Finishing in the sense that, like, I also feel like this game will always be there if I'm ready for another run.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I guess my last parting thoughts are Hades, go play it. Understand what roguelikes are and like what failure means in games. So I think that's the core of what we're talking about here. It's okay to lose. It's okay to potentially like get crushed, but usually, I think this is a core part of what games are, is that they have fail states,
Mm.
and a really interesting design decision or really interesting challenge for designers is how do you make that interesting for players?
So that's it for today on Cabbages and Kings. We talked about a lot of game design things. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you all next time. Peace.